Hey everyone, and welcome! Today we're diving into some of the most common and honestly most powerful words in the English language, the pronouns we use for women. It's kind of wild how these tiny words can end up telling such huge stories.
So let me start with this amazing story. Just picture this. A 6-year-old girl is in an art class. Her teacher comes over and asks, "What are you drawing?" And she says, "I'm drawing a picture of God." The teacher, gently says, "But honey, nobody knows what God looks like." And the little girl, without even looking up, just says, "They will in a minute." I mean, come on. That's the power of words, right? To create a crystal clear image in our minds in a split second.
And that's exactly what we're digging into here. We're talking about those small words, pronouns. Getting a handle on them can make everything you say and write so much clearer, way more respectful, and believe me, a whole lot more effective.
All right, so let's kick things off by looking at why these little words pack such a big punch and play such a huge role in our language. So, first things first, what even is a personal pronoun? Well, think of it like a shortcut for our language. It's a word that steps in for a noun, so our sentences don't get super repetitive. Instead of saying, "Tell Mary I miss Mary," we just say, "Tell Mary I miss her." It just flows so much better. Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Pronouns aren't a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Nope, they actually change their form depending on what job they're doing in a sentence. So let's break down the rules for she and her. So check this out. She is the subject, the one doing the action, like in she has a new girlfriend. Pretty straightforward. Her is the object, the one receiving the action. Tell Mary I miss her. But her also pulls double duty. It can show possession, like in her keys, and then you've got hers, which stands all by itself to show ownership. That coat is hers. Oh, and speaking of possession, let's just quickly tackle a classic mix-up that gets pretty much everyone. It's versus its. Here's the only thing you need to remember. The apostrophe. The apostrophe in its is a signal that something's missing. It's a contraction of it is or it has. Its, with no apostrophe, is the one that shows ownership. For instance, every country has its traditions.
Okay, so knowing the rules is one thing, but seeing them in action, that's where it really all clicks into place. Let's take a look at how these pronouns can breathe life and, more importantly, clarity into a real story.
Let's talk about the incredible Gillian Lynne. I mean, this is the woman who was the genius choreographer behind musicals like Cats and The Phantom of the Opera. But way back in the 1930s, her school was totally convinced she had a learning disorder, all because she just could not sit still.
Luckily, a specialist saw something totally different. He left her alone in a room with a radio on, and the second they walked out, she was on her feet, just moving to the music. The specialist turned to her mom and said, "Jillian isn't sick. She's a dancer. Take her to a dance school." You see how smooth that is? She is the one moving. Her is the one who needs to be taken. The pronouns keep the story focused entirely on Jillian, right where it should be.
And you can see this same kind of efficiency in another story, this time about a business traveler named Laura. She had been flying all night and still had one more leg in her flight. It's just perfectly concise. She is the subject who's flying, and her shows possession of the flight. No confusion, just a perfectly clear picture. This all brings us to a really crucial point. Language isn't static. It's not set in stone. It's a living, breathing thing that's always evolving. So let's take a look at how our whole approach to gender and pronouns has shifted over time.
Traditionally, it was pretty standard to just use he as a generic pronoun for, well, anyone. Then, as we tried to be more inclusive, he or she became really common. And now, especially in more informal speech, we often use the singular they, which, fun fact, has actually been around for centuries.
And this evolution goes way beyond just pronouns. You can see it in job titles, where words like actress are kind of fading away in favor of the more neutral actor. We see it with the preference for words like firefighter over fireman. And we even see it in how we address people, with the introduction of Miss back in the 70s, which gave women a title that, just like Mr., isn't tied to their marital status.
So, after all this, why have we spent so much time on just a handful of small words? Well, it's because getting them right has a massive impact on how we communicate.
It all really boils down to 4 key things: clarity, precision, respect, and effectiveness. When you use pronouns correctly, your message is just plain clear. You're being super precise about who you're talking about. You're showing respect, And all of that combined makes your communication more powerful, whether you're just writing an email or telling a story about the next Gillian Lynn. So the next time you're telling a story, just pay a little extra attention to those small words like she and her. They do so much more than just replace a name. They carry meaning, they show respect, and yeah, they tell a much bigger story about the world we see and the one we're trying to build.